Man has always been fascinated by some nagging questions about existence, about meaning, about value and destiny. Are we here by chance or a mere coincidence, or we are here with a purpose?
So obvious to us why we are here. So this ultimate quest, that we can call it, this ultimate quest has always been there ever since man started reflecting on the nature, on the universe.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. In today's episode, we turn our attention to some of the most profound and timeless questions that have occupied human thought for centuries. Questions about purpose, meaning, and existence itself. Why are we here? Is our being a result of mere chance, or does it reflect a deeper design? And perhaps the most mysterious question of all, why is there something rather than nothing? To help us explore these mysteries, we are joined by a distinguished scholar whose insights bridges philosophy, literature, and theology, Professor Mufti Mudasir. Professor Mufti Mudasir is a faculty member in the Department of English at the University of Kashmir, well versed in several languages, including Urdu, Persian, Arabic, and Kashmiri. He has made significant academic contributions not only to English studies but also to Persian and Kashmiri literatures, Kashmiri history, Sufi poetry, Iqbaliyat, and Islamic studies. He has translated poetry from Kashmiri, Urdu, Persian, and Arabic into English, as well as from Persian into Urdu. His work Aatshe-Tur is the first annotated Urdu translation of Ghani Kashmiri's complete Diwan. His forthcoming publication is an annotated translation from Persian of the celebrated Sufi poet Fariduddin Attar's longest and yet untranslated Masnavi, the Musibat Nama, a philosophical poem of about 7,000 verses. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Man has always been fascinated by some nagging questions about existence, about meaning, about value and destiny. Are we here by chance or a mere coincidence, or we are here with a purpose? Even though anthropic principle, which is raised by physics, puts some questions on the probability of being here by chance, actually it points towards a creator, towards a God. And the big question is, why is there something rather than nothing? Is it only matter or also mind, which is a philosophical term, soul, and ultimately God? To uncover these questions and to know about these questions, we are here in the Department of English, Kashmir University, to meet Professor Mufti Mudasir, whose introduction I have already given you in the first part of the video. So, sir, we are here with the very first question. What do we mean by the man's ultimate questions? क्या है इंसान की ये जो कोशिश है इंसान की खुदा को पहचानने की, अपने आप को पहचानने की, क्यों मैं इस दुनिया में हूं? Why is there something rather than nothing? इन सब सवालों को सर अगर हम अनकवर करेंगे तो क्या जवाब मिलेगा हमको?
Well, these are the questions which have always been there ever since man started thinking. And I think that these questions will always remain there. As you rightly put it, that why is there anything at all rather than nothing is the first question.
Exactly, sir.
That every intelligent person at some point in time thinks about. And this is perhaps one of the most fascinating features of human existence, that we want to know the reason why we are here.
Why we are here.
But it's not so obvious to us why we are here. So this ultimate quest, that we can call it, this ultimate quest has always been there ever since man started reflecting on the nature, on the universe, and on his own life. So I can put it like this, that there are some fundamental questions. The first one would be this: why is there anything at all rather than nothing? The second would be that what is the ultimate nature of the universe that we are living in? Is it matter, is it mind, or is it both? And finally, what is the human goal? Where are we going? Immanuel Kant, the famous German philosopher, actually said that there are, all said and done, there are three questions, three ultimate questions. How can I know what I can know? Number one. How I ought to live. And the third question is, what can I hope for?
What can I hope for?
Yes, what can I hope for? So the first question would be related to what you can also call metaphysics or epistemology. The second question is the question of morals. And the third question is the question of religion or ultimate meaning. And this has, of course, engaged great minds, exercised great minds ever since. As I said, that it begins with a feeling of wonder at, at the expanse of the universe. I'm reminded of Blaise Pascal, the famous French philosopher and mathematician, who said that when I look at the sky above me, I'm filled with terror.
I'm filled with terror.
I'm filled with awe. That what am I with relation to
The
this
whole
vast,
universe, this vast
universe,
universe, right?
the expanse of the universe, and this tiny thing called human being has the capacity to look into the the starry skies above and to think about that. That itself is very amazing.
Exactly.
And if we look at our how tiny we are with relation to the
The vast mega universe.
Yes. And still we have the capacity to think over, to reflect over this vastness and to ask this question. Again, I'm reminded of Immanuel Kant, who once attended a lecture. He was not giving a lecture, he was attending a lecture once. And a scientist was explaining the vastness of the universe. And he was also coming, time and again, he was coming to this idea of the smallness of man. And at the end of the lecture, Kant stood and he said that the vastness of the universe is, of course, very, is very amazing, very wonderful. But even more amazing than that is the fact that man, being such a small thing, is able to
Think about it.
and
Exactly.
to raise this question that why is this all there and what am I with relation to this?
The universe, right?
So these are the ultimate questions. These will always engage great minds. Again, I'm reminded of Iqbal, who opens his series of lectures with these questions: that what is the nature of this universe? What is the nature of human existence? And finally, what attitude befits the place that we inhabit this universe? These are the questions which Iqbal says are taken up by philosophy, religion, and higher poetry.
And higher poetry.
Yes.
Right, sir. Once upon a time, Stephen Hawking said that these questions belonged to the domain of philosophy. But in order to know even a small iota or a small bit of universe, you have to go through vigorous mathematics. So it's not now philosophers' cup of tea to think about universe, its vastness, because ultimately science proved how universe behaves, or is actually trying to prove how universe behaves. So scientists think that it's their cup of tea now, it belongs to their realm. And are you, sir, able to, if we say then there comes philosophy, and with philosophy there comes religion. So we can ask one more question in this regard. What should be the role of religion in all this? Is it going to solve the puzzle, or it's going to provide a definite answer, or still providing more confusion to it? Because at that time, science faces the question posed by philosophy or philosophers. Now the whole scenario have changed. Now we have got baffling questions. So what's the response of religion?
These baffling questions have always been there. If you look at the history of Western philosophy, philosophy, by the way, was a term which was an all-encompassing term, which included what we today would call even science. So ancient thinkers, Greek thinkers, when they reflected on the nature of things, they came up with certain ideas, with certain theories about what actually is the the basic element that constitutes this world, this universe. And in ancient Greece, we have examples of philosophers like Plato and Aristotle thinking that this universe could not have come into existence on its own.
On its own.
Yes. So ever since antiquity, we could say that the idea of a supernatural power, which is the ultimate cause of why things have come to this this point, who is the creator of this universe. So they have philosophers since antiquity have thought about some power, some being who is the final cause, who is the ultimate cause, who is the reason why
Universe is exists at the very first place, right?
Yeah, but they have differed as far as their understanding of that power is concerned. For example, Aristotle's God is not a personal God of
like Spinoza's God,
Christianity or Islam. It is more or less, he calls it the prime mover. The basic reason why things were set in motion, in the first cause.
The first cause.
And other philosophers interpreted it in different ways. But once we come to the Judeo-Christian and the Islamic tradition, there we have the concept of a personal God.
Exactly.
And that personal God, then later on, when Aristotelianism, first Platonism and then Aristotelianism in the Middle Ages was at its peak, there were attempts by philosophers who were believing Christians or Muslims to integrate these ideas of ancient Greek philosophers into their faith. So people like Ibn Sina and Farabi before him in the Muslim tradition, and after them Ibn Rushd, and in the Christian tradition, St. Thomas Aquinas and others, they try to integrate these ideas from Platonism, Neoplatonism, and Aristotelianism into their faith, and they try to
make it a bit of compatibility to create some
construct a body of knowledge that would address these ultimate questions, and that would also have a rational appeal. It has a tradition of its own.
But can we conclude that we are very far away from the answers about existence, about meaning, about value, and even about destiny? Are we here by chance, or there is a creator? Do we have got some definite, profound arguments, or simply we play with the words and see how the puzzle is being solved?
That requires a bit of unpacking, because this is a very profound question. As I said, that it has exercised the minds of the great people from pre-Socratic times to the present.
So we're back at the square one.
It is not so easy to give
a definite answer
to this.
Fine, sir. Fine.
It is a process that has it will continue in different ways. I would like to come back to what you said, that there was a time when it was thought that perhaps religion has the answer to these questions, and then science comes and it says that no, religion is just speculation that is not really founded on any empirical evidence.
Yes.
Science is based on empirical evidence.
That's the nature of science itself.
Science is going, but if you look at the problem was evident to the thinkers right from the beginning. Howsoever successful you are in interpreting or explaining nature, science is basically limited, because all that it can do is that it can push the question further. So Big Bang, for example, has a very wonderful explanation, which today is accepted by most scientists, that it all started with a Big Bang.
Actually, it's a misnomer. No such bang happened. Not a loud noise,
but it is called Big Bang.
Yes, it's called Big Bang.
So that was the beginning. That and we have Muslim theologians who say that there is an allusion perhaps to this in a verse of the Quran, that don't the disbelievers see that the earth and the heavens were joined together. فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا. That they were kanata ratqan fafataknahuma. They were joined together. We tore them. We split them apart. So, but I'm not really a fan of reading scientific explanations or scientific theories from the Quran. But nonetheless, the point is that science will push the question further. It will not give you an ultimate answer, because then your question would be that why did Big Bang take place? So theologians and philosophers would come to a question that in order to explain everything, we have to posit the existence of an uncaused cause.
Exactly.
What
at the very first place.
At the very first place. So that is something that is compatible to theists who believe in a God who exists in a way outside time, but there are different theories on this. But nonetheless, who somehow is not part of the universe, who brought the universe into existence. And the universe depends on his will. The existence of universe depends on his will. And if he wants, any time in future, he can wind up things.
And there can be a final crash, or there can be a final
crash, or there can be, which would be a prelude to a new beginning. يَوْمَ نَطْوِي السَّمَاءَ كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ لِلْكُتُبِ كَمَا بَدَانَا أَوَّلَ خَلْقٍ نُعِيدُهُ, says the Quran. The day we will roll the skies, that like the rolling of a parchment. Kama badana awwal khalqin nu'idu. And just like we did the first time, we will do it again.
We will do it again, exactly. And so, from the theistic point of view, it's entirely in the hands of God to create or to finish the whole universe. But don't you see that, sir? For example, in Genesis, it's written that God created the universe in 7 days, and on Sunday he rested. But the concept of day, the time, is because of the rotation of the earth. Now, if a scientist is asking them these questions, they try to reinterpret. So it only happens, this reinterpretation or putting a different narrative only happened after science started explaining these things. Before that, they never bothered to put these
That is
sort of
true.
interpretations, and that's very true. And so, can't we say that actually science is the main reason why people are now trying to dive deep into these questions rather than philosophy?
No, I would say that questions were always there, and people who delve deep into these problems, they were always there. But of course, science has given a new perspective.
New perspective.
Science has given a new perspective because it has better tools of explanation. It explains, for example, theory of evolution. What is that? It explains how life has evolved, and
Over the period of time, and different species came into being.
kind of
Yes.
complexity that we see in life today.
Thank you very much, sir. You can see many people writing books. For example, Sam Harris wrote a book, End of Faith. And even Richard Dawkins, he says, faith or religion is completely illogical and irrational. What are your views about that? If I put my question like this, can religion be entirely rational? What is the relationship between faith and reason? Can they be somewhere interconnected, or they are two completely different domains where no point of intersection is seen?
Again, there are different opinions on this. If I take you back to history, you will find that both in the Islamic tradition and the Christian tradition, there have been people who have maintained that reason and faith are completely compatible, whereas there are people who have thought, no, they are not completely compatible. So it has a very rich tradition, a very rich history of its own. But things have definitely taken a different turn once science arrived on the scene. Let me go back and tell you something about, an interesting thing in the life of Imam Ghazali,
Imam
who is
Ghazali.
considered to be a great theologian of Islam. Imam Ghazali was a very renowned figure, and suddenly he thought that he needs to answer some of the objections raised by philosophers, because Islamic philosophy at that time was at its peak.
At its peak.
Because Farabi and Ibn Sina had already written their works, and they had a huge impact on the Muslim world. But Ghazali thought that some of their fundamental ideas are not according to religious teachings. So he went to their texts, he read those texts, and in fact, he became engrossed in those texts. He read them so well that he wrote a book called Maqasid al-Philosopha. This Maqasid al-Philosopha was a book that was translated into Latin, and it was considered to be the primary text to understand philosophy.
Oh.
Yes. Because in Maqasid al-Philosopha, Ghazali does not really refute these philosophers. He's just giving them, a concise summary and explanation of what philosophers think about universe, about the nature of soul, and other things. But then he realized that some of their teachings, in fact, their fundamental teachings, are not according to the Quranic teaching. So he wrote a very famous book called Tahafatul Philosopher, which translates as the incoherence of the philosophers.
Yes.
And in that book, he tries to show that using the methods of Farabi and Ibn Sina, of course, their methods were taken from the Greeks. Using those methods of argumentation and demonstration, Ghazali tried to show that all these main ideas that they put forward regarding the eternity of the universe, or God's knowledge of the particulars, or the impossibility of the physical resurrection of the bodies, they all are based on flimsy grounds. They really do not, they really are not philosophical arguments. And they say that after Ghazali, the tradition of philosophy in Islam, it died a sudden death, because so hard was the blow dealt by Ghazali to philosophers कि उसके बाद फिर कोई फलसफी उठा नहीं,
उभरा ही नहीं.
Ibn Rushd आया within 1 century after Ghazali, and he tried to address the objections raised by Ghazali, and he wrote a book called Tahafatu Tahafa, the incoherence of Ghazali's incoherence. And he tried to show that philosophers are exactly right. He did not, of course, agree entirely with Ibn Sina and Farabi, because he thought that they were somehow not Aristotelians. They were too much influenced by Neoplatonism. But Ibn Rushd tried to erect a strong structure, a strong foundation of philosophy based on Aristotelianism. And according to him, Aristotelianism was very much compatible with the teachings of the Quran. How that he does it, we don't have time.
That's altogether a different story. Yes,
time to go into that. But coming to your question, that there have been people who have thought that faith and reason are compatible. In fact, can
we put a single argument in its favor?
I would say, I would say that to divorce reason from faith is a disaster. And this kind of fideism has actually never taken root in Islam the way it has taken root in Christianity. In Christian tradition, there were theologians who went to the extent of saying that faith is by definition absurd, and reason has nothing to do with faith. But this kind of attitude was not adopted by Muslim thinkers. Faith and reason were always seen as, going together. But how that they were going together? For example, I will give you an example of Ibn Taymiyyah, who is considered to be, the great champion of, you can call Salafi Islam or Orthodox Islam, whatever you call it. He wrote a book called Dar'ut Ta'aruz Bain al-Aqli wal-Naql. In 11 volumes, he wrote. In
11 volumes?
Yes. He wrote that book trying to argue that there is absolutely no conflict between reason and faith. It is called Dar'ut Tanaquz Bain al-Aqli wal-Naql.
But we are the argument same as those, because nowadays we have got different set of questions.
Yeah, we have a different. Now, you talked about these new age atheists like Richard Dawkins, who has written God Delusion, Sam Harris, and Christopher Hitchens, and others. A small group of philosophers.
And actually, they don't belong to the, we can say, positive scientific realm. It's their ideas. Even bigger scientists who are having a great reputation, they also believe in God. It's not simply that science is trying to deny the existence of God, or at the same time trying to prove the existence of God. But these questions will always arise.
There are many physicists who are very good in their subject, and they are believers.
They are believers
in God. What is, I think, why they became popular in the West was because of their attitude, how they actually used to mock
religion. Yes.
And in fact, this has not really earned them a good name with serious thinking people.
Exactly.
I'm reminded of a book by Terry Eagleton, who's himself a Marxist, who says that how pathetic these people are. People like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and others, these new atheists, they have not read Aquinas. They do not understand Aquinas, and they take some examples from here and there, some verses of Bible from here and there, and then they create an image of all religion, and then they try to denounce religion, debunk religion, without any regard to the philosophical foundations on which religion actually stands.
Exactly. So we can conclude like that faith is not irrational or illogical. Only you can have a different perspective of viewing it. And at the end of the day, if you go deep into philosophy of faith, you can come up with the conclusion. What's your take on that, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm a great advocate of the idea that faith and reason should not be divorced, because it has its own problems. Okay. Even when we come to our own faith, we find that there are many problems with religions and religious faiths in our contemporary world. One of the problems is that people who espouse a particular faith, they try to argue that faith and reason are two very different things. And there are some disastrous results of this. For example, intolerance is one of the things that arises from this. The capacity not to critically revisit your own position comes from this. And then it leads to many other problems.
Okay, sir. People claim that morality, meaning, and value are simply presented by religion. If one is a profound religious man, he can simply follow a set of rules and thus become modest. So is the morality or this modesty, or is it absolute or it's relative?
No, relative, this another idea that has emerged from the West, that morals are relative. But let me assure you that no serious thinking philosopher can be a relativist. Relativism is self-defeating. How it is self-defeating, I don't have time to explain that to you. But no great philosopher is a relativist in the real sense, and because they know that somehow there has to be something. They may not be, absolutists like Plato, believing in the form of goodness or some other moral form which is, somehow outside time, outside history, which remains static, which does not change. But to say that nothing in itself is good and bad, it is only our thinking that
That makes it
so we don't find many people subscribing to this
to
view.
okay to
And
the,
religion provides a strong foundation to morals, because it says that the source of morality actually is God, and it is not something which is socially constructed. It is not something. Well, you could say that there are people who are moral just because they want to be nice, they want to be polite. Yes, there are people, but that does not negate the fact that beneath that social morality there is something more fundamental. That is what the philosophers are after. Philosophers like Plato, Kant, and other philosophers who talk about these sound moral principles, they look beyond this social morality. They look beyond mere the idea of conformity. Social
religion also
conformity.
says that by nature human being is intrinsically moral. Is it true?
I think that is true, because as Bible says that a man is made in the image of God.
God.
That means that man, there is something that God has put in man. That is this sense of what Islam would call fitra.
Fitra.
Fitrat Allahi lati fatara an-nasa alayha. That there is some given nature, and unless it is corrupted by external influence, we will continue to carry it in our, with us in our lives. But it is corrupted by the external influence.
Okay,
فأبواه जो हदीस में आया है कुल्लु मौलूदिन यूलदु अलल फित्रा فأبواه يهودانه وينصرانه ويمجسانه. That every child is born on fitra, but then when he comes into this world, he learns the religion of his parents, becomes this religion,
circumstantial conditioning.
yes. But that does not mean that beneath everything, beneath these accretions, beneath these layers, there is a core does not exist. A core does exist.
A core does exist. We were speaking about the vastness of universe. So Stephen Hawking, let me quote you once again. He said that the existence of Earth is so small as compared to the whole universe that if you simply put a grain of sand and put it on your hand, the vastness which is lying on the beach, the number of grains which is so infinite that we cannot even count them, it hardly matters if one grain exists or not. And he mocks about the concept of personal God, that do you try to degrade or make your God to focus on this very, very, very negligible planet and see what humans are doing there, and then maintaining a register and ticking and crossing, putting the virtues and sins, vices and virtues. What's your say on this?
Well, I said that, as I told you, that the fact is that we do occupy a very, very tiny space when we compare ourselves with the infinity around us. But I do not see how what Stephen Hawking is trying to infer from it, how that follows. Because
he's trying to infer that you are actually devaluing, degrading God from looking at the whole universe and just making him to focus on a very small planet whose existence even does not matter.
First of all, we do not know whether there is any conscious life anywhere else in the world or not.
That's a big question mark.
Yes.
But we can have solutions from Drake's equation and other thing. They are joking that if you put a spoon in the sea and when it comes back, you are not finding crocodile or fish in that. That does not mean these does not exist in the sea.
We don't know. So let me come to this particular point. See, for any inference to be correct, one has to know all those parameters, all those factors which play a role in making it right or wrong. So just because we are small does not mean we are also insignificant.
That's also a point, yes.
Just because we are tiny does not mean that we are insignificant. And also we do not know how many conscious beings God has. For example, Quran says, "La ya'lamu junuda rabbika illa hu." Nobody knows the number of the God's legions except him. So maybe there are beings of a different kind occupying different places in the universe who are doing what God wants them to do. How
And
do
we don't know that.
We
And we don't know that.
So I think this inference is not really
Exactly. So, sir, my next question will be: what are the contemporary challenges you see faith is actually facing?
One challenge is a challenge of knowledge, because we live in an age of, where everything is now, people know
They
what
can
is
say
happening in any part of the world
world.
gets comes to you within no time. So when I say challenge from knowledge, I mean the challenge from philosophy and science primarily. And as we have already seen, that these are some of the questions which will never be settled, and there will be people who, despite all our attempts to persuade them, will remain unpersuaded. But our task is not really to persuade the non-believer. I think this is my personal opinion. I think that if we get our house into order, that would be the best thing to do. We first of all understand what faith is about. Faith is not merely assenting to some proposition. Faith is much more than that. Faith is not merely belief in the sense that we affirm that there is a God. It involves something more than that. It involves, for example, your aspirations, your hopes, your fears also. For example, this is one of the ways that iman was defined. Al imanu bayna raja'i wal khawf. That iman occupies a territory between fear and hope.
Between fear and hope.
Between fear and hope.
The
That you
very
have
nice
raja,
statement.
you have hope, and you also have khawf. So it is basically an attitude. It's not merely affirming something which thereafter does not really have any impact on how you live. It is an attitude to reality. So if your attitude is full of, you come into this world, you live, and when you reflect on these ultimate questions, it makes you a different man. So you have certain idea about how you have to live your life, that you are being watched by a God to whom you will tomorrow have to render an account of your
And
acts.
there's accountability.
If you have this, then then you have faith. It's not merely saying that, okay, I believe in this proposition and that the matter ends there. And the second thing is that religious people, by focusing on things which are really peripheral to faith, have actually done damage to religion rather than done
Any good thing to it.
good thing with
Exactly.
them. I'm reminded of a verse by Ghalib, who in one of his Persian verses says that सुखन कूता मराहम दिल बतकवा माई लस्त अम्मा जिन्नंगे जाहिद उफ्तादम बकाफिर माजराईहा. He says that, to put it briefly, sukhan kota maraham dil bataqwa ma. I too incline towards piety, but then I look at how the so-called pious behave, and I have joined the disbelievers.
The disbelievers.
Meaning that the actions of the so-called champions of faith have made me turn away from faith.
Turn away from faith.
Giving it a light-hearted, a humorous touch. But the idea is that it does happen very often that because of the practice of the people who call themselves believers, people who look at them and who expect something good from them, they really are not attracted to faith. In fact, they
get deviated from the faith.
Yes,
okay.
That
So coming to the final part of our podcast is, so do you feel that religion has lost its importance it once had, because we now live in a post-enlightenment world?
This is true to some extent of the Western world. But let me tell you that although not many people identify as religious, in perhaps not the majority, at least in Europe, although not in America, but religion still is a very interesting topic, even in those secular countries where people do not practice any religion, do not identify as religious people. But as far as our part of the world is concerned, religion still is very important, and it occupies, I think, the most important place in our lives, in our day-to-day
activities.
And everything is kind of governed by our religious outlook. And I would like to have it like that, if only we become more emancipated, more enlightened, more educated, and have a better and a sensitive approach to religion. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. It was